employers.
Question number 7, Honourable David Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. By how many dollars has the gap between New Zealand and Australian average weekly wages grown since December 2008, based on the methodology used by John Key in July 2010?
Mr. Speaker,
Honourable Bill English.
I can't actually answer the member's question on the actual dollars for 2 reasons. One is that the government has never updated that table because it believes the methodology has proven to be flawed, and I'll explain why. The wage series is not an official measure. The calculation did not take account of tax cuts, and the purchasing power parities that are used are quite volatile. Nevertheless, I understand the Parliamentary Library has a series that attempts to replicate it. Based on those numbers, the member put out a press release claiming that the median weekly wage with Australia has ballooned by $60 to $180 a week. That refers to the median weekly wage rather than the average, and that's the other reason I can't answer the member's question, because he has made a mistake by confusing average and median.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Parker.
Can he then confirm that the median wage gap with Australia on a purchase price parity basis has increased by New Zealand dollars $60 a week, 50% more than he took when he took office, and now sits at $180 a week? And does he agree that the government will not achieve its aim of closing the wage gap with Australia?
Honourable Bill English.
No, I can't confirm it because I think the member is comparing an average with a median, and that wouldn't be that's not a valid way to compare statistics. What I can tell the member is that I believe we are making progress on closing the wage gap with Australia, despite the fact that Australia has had higher economic growth rates than we have had through our recession. The after-tax wages, real after-tax wages, have grown 12% in New Zealand under this government, and at the same time in Australia, real after-tax wages have grown 9%, so we are closing the gap on real after-tax wages.
Honourable David Parker, supplementary.
Is he aware that the gap between the take-home pay of Australians and New Zealanders has not closed once Labor's 2008 tax cut is removed from his calculation, and once National's 2010 GST increase and their ACC increase is included?
Honourable Bill English. Mr. Speaker, no, I'm not aware of those calculations. But what I can tell the member is that obviously when Australia was growing at 3.5% and New Zealand was in recession, that makes it harder to close the gap. New Zealand went into recession under the Labor government before the global financial crisis. We have made every effort possible to dig New Zealand out of recession and get New Zealanders' wages growing again, and the good news is they are growing again.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Parker.
Has he seen the Treasury advice which was provided to the government in 2010, which stated that the wage gap between New Zealand and Australia grew by 50% in the 90s under National, shrunk by 9% during Labor's 9 years of government? And if so, why does he think that New Zealanders do so badly under National governments?
That's a good question.
Honourable Bill English.
I did see the advice, and the reason New Zealanders are doing better now is because the government is making moderate and considered change over time consistently, and it is focusing on everything it can be done to get businesses investing and employing. Now, that has been difficult in the face of recession and earthquake and now drought, but the good news is that New Zealand business community is much more resilient than the opposition believes, and we are beginning to close the gap on Australia.
Supplementary question, Honourable David Parker.
Given the
order. Allow Mr.
Given
David Parker
the
supplementary
Minister's
to be heard.
reference to the difference on the basis of average weekly earnings, and one of his earlier answers to questions, is he aware that when comparing average weekly earnings on a PPP basis with Australia, not median, that the gap has grown from $121 per week to $179.94 in the period since he took office?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker, no, I'm not aware of that, but even if I was, it's not the relevant measure. It's not the relevant measure for take-home pay for New Zealanders. Real after-tax wages, that is, pay adjusted for inflation and for tax, has grown 12% in New Zealand since 2009, and it grew 9% in Australia. So real after-tax wages, which is what people pay their bills with, have closed the gap between New Zealand and Australia.
Question number 8, Te Ururoa Flavel.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker, kia ora tātou katoa, ko tako pātai ki te minita mō ngā take